Welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. We'll begin in 2 minutes.
Yeah. You gotta bust past, don't catch no feelings. I come through with the style that's always revealing. From the block like the tick-tock, don't stop. I was that shorty, you know she was non-stop. I had the hot plot, chilling like a real god. Everybody know Big One was a show shot. You get high with the Don, here's the real supply. You get high with the Don, here's the real supply. It goes on, ain't no fucking questions why. The gangster of love, get the real fucking supply. What? She came through, giving me more than I can tell you. Everybody knows the next level. I'm so clever. Take the day off. Take the day off. Yeah. Get high on your own supply. Feel like a dime when you do or die. Just get high on my own supply. Cold do or die when I'm feeling like why. Choose a dime piece. Yes, one of a kind. Holler at me, I was one of a kind. We had a bill, throw the shoes to the side. Come on, throw them shoes to the side. Take the day off with me. Come and take it off with me. Take the day off with me. Take the day off. Get on trafficking. Trafficking with my friend right here. That's what I say. The past Jacks, they ain't up to nothing. Everybody loves it with me. Okay, yeah. When your mom cut off your welfare, I was there. Holding you down, mama. Holding you down. When it left you alone, I was there. Everybody knows I was there. You wanna call me out now? Still loving you like I'm loving the sound. Yes, I'll still be there. Them found ass niggas ain't here right now. Who loves you now? And who loves you now? And who loves you now?
Welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. I am proud to have a live presentation with Tanawah Downing and Jessica Saxton. I believe they're live in the Chicago City Council meeting, and we are going to go there right now. So hang on, folks. Yeah, let me get everything off of here. Add the stage. Don't blow that up. Let me go over there and really blow it up. Let's go live. I just spoke to Jessica. I'm still on the stage. Yeah, I'm still there. I gotta find my phone. Now from what Jessica explained to me on the phone, they get myself in here so you guys can see me. There you go. Chicago publicly had stated that the meeting would start at 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. Central Time. So they showed up. Tanawah and Jessica showed up at 9:45, and the meeting was already 15 minutes into the meeting. So they started actually 30 minutes before the pre-announced time. But they have another one at 11 o'clock. So it is now 11:01. I don't know why we're not receiving a feed, but the feed is coming directly from Chicago City Council. So what we're going to see is a presentation by either Tanawah or Jessica. So you will actually get to witness what it's like to do a presentation. Now, I know as soon as they finish up here in Chicago, they're headed to KC, Kansas City. I don't know if they're going to Missouri or Kansas. Either way, that's still a nice trek. Tanawah and Jessica were we were scheduled to come on and do a show last night at 8 Central. However, they had a flat and got tied up with that, so their schedule got thrown off. I didn't know if they were back on schedule or not. Sounds like they're starting.
Thank you all for being here today, and good morning.
Here we go.
Good morning.
Let me first just express my condolences to the family of former Governor Edgar. His leadership leaves a long-lasting impact on not just the city of Chicago, but the entire state of Illinois. I also want to thank a number of members from my administration for being here today. Our Deputy Mayor of Immigrant, Migrant, and Refugee Rights, Beatrice Ponce de Leon, Deputy Mayor of Community Safety, Gary and Gatewood. We have our Budget Director, Annette Guzman, and then my Corporate Counsel, Mary Richardson Laurie. This morning, I signed an executive order protecting the right to protest in the city of Chicago. Chicago remains a center of civic action, as it has been since our founding. Whether it's the abolitionist movement led by Chicagoans like John and Mary Jones, the uprisings for an 8-hour workday in the Haymarket era, the industrial union movement led by the CIO, the women's rights movement, the civil rights movement, and other collective actions over the last 2 centuries. As history shows us, these peaceful protests have been a true catalyst for social change. This order is about being proactive, as we saw what happened in Broadview just a few days ago, where protesters were shot with less lethal bullets, pepper bullets, for peacefully protesting. With the presence of ICE in our neighborhoods, we can expect Chicago residents to follow in the footsteps of the generations of Chicagoans who came before them and peacefully assemble and protest. The First Amendment clearly states that we have the right to peacefully assemble, petition our government, and speak freely without intervention or fear of retaliation. If the federal government will not uphold this right, then the city of Chicago will. This executive order solidifies our commitment to protecting the constitutional rights of all residents and visitors, including the fundamental right to free speech and, again, to peacefully assemble. With this order, the roles of city departments and agencies and the Chicago Police Department are clearly defined in order to support peaceful protests and the exercise of First Amendment rights. Today, the city of Chicago affirms that peaceful protests and dissent are essential to public safety, democracy, and civic engagement. And we affirm that the CPD possesses the resources, training, and professional expertise necessary to safeguard the exercise of the First Amendment freedoms within our city. This executive order is part of our Protecting Chicago initiative, a cross-departmental effort to protect our residents' constitutional rights and defend our democracy. Another effort in this initiative that I am proud to announce is the launch of our Protecting Chicago Toolkit, available on the new city website, chicago.gov/protect, designed to provide residents streamlined updates of any federal intervention as well as centralized resources. This website is an expansion of the Mayor's Office of Immigrant, Migrant, and Refugee Rights' successful Know Your Rights campaign. The resources from the Know Your Rights campaign can be found on this website, in addition to resources that will help residents plan for peaceful protests, stay informed of their rights, and there is information on previous executive orders which affirm that CPD will remain locally controlled. The city of Chicago will continue doing everything in our power to protect communities and ultimately defend our democracy. The website, again, is chicago.gov/protect, and I encourage our residents to remain informed, civically, peacefully engaged. Lastly, I'm sure all saw that the Finance Committee unanimously approved our global settlement for the Watts case. This is about two things. One, justice for survivors of torture and abuse by those who have been charged with keeping us safe. As all of you may remember, I included funding in our first budget for a monument in Chicago to honor the survivors of police torture. So this is a long-standing commitment of mine. It's not enough to just push for constitutional policing today. We also must rectify the crimes of the past, and that starts with justice for the victims. And in this instance, we're talking about 170 cases and 204 years of custody. 2 centuries in custody is what we're talking about. And secondly, this is, of course, about protecting the taxpayers. As much as we can, we have to do that. And this is a good deal for the people of Chicago, and it's a fair deal for the survivors of these crimes. And that is why I instructed our corporation counsel to pursue this strategy. And I'm glad that the city council agrees with our approach. And finally, I want to congratulate, again, we have another grandparent amongst us, reporter Fran Spillman, on becoming a brand new grandmother on Sunday. And so we wish her and her entire family all the best. So thank you all. Now I am gleefully ready to answer all of your questions.
Okay. Testing. All right. William, we're going to start with you. Right here.
Wasn't expecting that. Mayor Johnson, we've all seen the horrific video of Irena Zaruska being stabbed in the neck on public transportation. In Chicago, we have countless examples of women being punched in the face, choked out, robbed, abused, murdered by violent repeat offenders. And your only legislation or in regards to public safety on public transportation is don't smoke cigarettes. Is there anything that you'd like to say to the women who have been abused by violent repeat offenders in the city of Chicago?
Well, first of all, my community safety plan is far more substantive than just asking people not to smoke. Our investments in community safety have been unprecedented, quite frankly, and public safety and community safety will always remain my top priority. Our deputy mayor can speak very cogently about the community safety plan, which is the people's plan. And the ultimate goal is to drive violence down in the city of Chicago, whether it's on a train or in a neighborhood. There are way too many individuals, of course, that have been victimized by violence. And it, again, is my top priority to continue to make sure that we're investing in our detectives division as our detectives bureau coordinates and collaborates with our counterintelligence and all of our stakeholders coming together to drive violence down in the city of Chicago. Many of these acts, as you have described, are quite horrific. And that's why I'm working hard every single day to make sure that even with the 30% reduction in homicides, even with the over 35% reduction in shootings and shooting victims, as we continue to get a handle on robberies. Look, any act of violence is one act too many. And I'm going to work hard every day to ensure that we build the safest, most affordable big city in America.
Mayor Johnson, we've all seen the horrific video of Charlie Kirk being politically assassinated. In Chicago, we saw an ICE agent reportedly run over by an illegal alien. many people tell me, real Chicagoans tell me that it's your violent, racist hate speech that is causing people to commit these acts of violence. What do you say to the real Chicagoans who detest what they call the insipid, insidious, boneheaded hate speech that you engage in on a daily basis?
Well, first of all, I don't engage in hate speech. In fact, I think it's important that we note that, as I've said from the very beginning of this tragedy that occurred in our country, that political violence is not only abhorrent, but it undermines the sensibility of our democracy, and there's no place for political violence. In fact, violence as a whole is something that, as a country and as a nation, that we have to continue to come together to ensure that we eliminate all acts of violence. My prayers, of course, are still with Mrs. Kirk and the two children of Charlie Kirk. But again, we boldly and in very direct terms openly reject all acts of violence, and particularly political violence. Thank you for those questions.
We go to Heather.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
Gregory Bovino is in town. He arrived this morning promising many more arrests by ICE of people he say are undocumented. What do you say to the people of Chicago who saw those videos this morning and felt fear and concern for their relatives and loved ones?
Well, look, I understand that the fear and the anxiety is real. That's what this president is attempting to promulgate. That is his tactic. The city of Chicago is a firm, welcoming city. And so in terms of how our local police department will behave, along with my administration, we're going to ensure that the people of Chicago know their rights. We're going to protect people's rights to be able to peacefully assemble and push back against this form of tyranny that is being promulgated throughout our entire country. And then finally, we are putting forth, again, more stronger executive orders to ensure that there are policies in place to ensure maximum protection for the people of Chicago. What I'm also grateful for, though, is that the number of people in this city that have come together and have put their arms around our immigrant community. Look, this is an important part of the fabric and the soul of Chicago. Immigrants from around the world, whether they're Polish, Jewish, Italian, immigrants have come to the city of Chicago to find absolute refuge. And we're talking about 3 and 4 generations later. And that's what the president is trying to interrupt. Somehow he's intimidated by the level of diversity in the makeup of the city of Chicago. This is a city that has a long history of resistance. Again, the city that birthed Keep Hope Alive. Yes, we can, right? The city that birthed the labor movement. And so we're going to continue to remain firm. And I get that people are feeling the level of anxiety, but they should be assured that as far as I'm concerned, in my administration, we're going to work with all of our stakeholders to ensure that the people of Chicago are protected and supported.
This afternoon, and the president renewed his threat to send the National Guard to Chicago over your objections and the objections of Governor Pritzker. Is there any reason for the president to deploy National Guard troops or other armed military personnel to Chicago to focus on crime or violence?
Dr. King referred to militarism as a sickness. Unfortunately, this president is full of that sickness. There are no circumstances under which the deployment of American soldiers should be sent in cities across America. It's actually quite upsetting that this president has seduced a number of American people into his meretricious form of governance that has placed our democracy at incredible risk. That's why I put forth executive orders to ensure maximum protection. That's why we're going to continue to hold firm as a welcoming city. But this is why we're also going to reject this illness of militarism, of racism, the sickness of not being willing to address poverty. If this president was sincere about addressing crime in Chicago and American cities, he would not cut the budget by 30% of ATF. There's an opportunity for ATF to coordinate with local police departments across America to get illegal guns off the streets of Chicago and cities across America that are being illegally trafficked from states like Mississippi, Louisiana, Indiana, that's an effort that's worthwhile investing in. Unfortunately, it's pretty clear that the office of the president has been cheapened by this president.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
On the executive order, can you kind of specify how this directive to CPD to coordinate with protest organizers is different from current CPD policy? And can you walk through sort of an example of when this policy would come into play?
Well, thank you for that question. Let's look at what happened in Broadview. There's no policy in place that if the federal government interferes with our First Amendment rights, there's no policy in place. This executive order gives a clear order that in the event the federal government tramples on the Constitution, our police department has a responsibility to make sure that we're protecting our democracy. And we saw this happen in Broadview, where from a roof, you had
a little gap there and we can do something.
The federal government with armed, less lethal, bullets, but it's still bullets nonetheless. And so this is why this executive order is critical, because we want to make sure that there's a clear policy on what the CPD has a right to do now under my executive order.
On the budget task force that you assembled in the report that's out, it recommends increasing property taxes with the rate of inflation, saying the city needs its largest
Well, get my camera right. There we go. I just got a call from Jessica. They're livid because, obviously I told you they changed the scheduling from the announced time and started 15 minutes before they got there, 15 minutes early. So they started this thing at 9:30, wrapped that up, and then they were going to do another presentation and allow the public to speak, public comments at 11 a.m. Central Time. And then they got slick again and canceled public comments. So Jessica and Tanawah are in Chicago City Council right now, hopping mad. But that's okay. It is what it is. And they're re-strategizing what they're going to do. They may come on and do another live later this evening. I don't know what time. Obviously, I have Wesley scheduled at 8. So I have no idea what time they're going to pop on. I told them to I told them just to figure out when they have a nice little gap and they're stable and they can give me a buzz and we can do a show. So I don't think you folks realize how tough it is out there, and I don't even know if this is an apt comparison, but that's a weird one. Okay. I could use Charlie Kirk versus what Tanawah is doing, the same thing. Charlie Kirk got a lot of money behind him, became a movement. Tanawah is doing the same thing, but you would think he would have some more support because they're going, some of their main focus is targeted towards the parents who've lost children, or dealing with CPS or, family courts and all. I mean, it's just a nightmare when you get in there. You think you're just going to go and pay your attorney and get everything that you need to get done and walk away. And, but these things are messy. And, yeah, it's just all fair in love and war, right? So they're out on the front lines. Things change. They are really, they're they've stopped their life to do this. This is what they do. Travel from city to city, doing presentations, putting city councils and county commissioner courts on notice. And we need more people like this. They shouldn't have to be traveling all over the country to do this. We should be having Zooms or StreamYard meetings where we should be, assisting other people in other jurisdictions to do the exact same thing without Tanawah and Jessica having to come to your community and hold your hand to get you to go do it. If you want to change your community, you have to be active. You have to call people, talk to them. You have to have a discussion, a conversation, and that's what Charlie Kirk was trying to do. And obviously Chicago doesn't want to have a conversation. They'd rather shut people down. And you just heard the mayor talk about, all these rights that he's for, that he supports, that they're not going to trample upon. No, you're not going to find tyranny in Chicago. And there you see it. Live and up close. That's just another tragedy upon our society. I don't know what to think about this country. I don't know how divided it is, but it looks like it is just, there's a Grand Canyon right through the middle of our society. And it doesn't look like anybody wants to breach the chasm. But it seems like, one side's just totally lost their minds. It's like half their brain melted and they just don't function correctly. I mean, that takes some real, true cojones, some balls to announce, how you support all these constitutional rights and freedoms, and then you just shut down the public from speaking. When they did their first live broadcast, which I linked into, Jessica told me they had 43 viewers. So I don't know if she told them that this was going to be broadcast live on my show. There's all the texts. Whoops. So there you go. Whether or not, I seriously doubt throwing my name around had any effect. Because it sure doesn't around Texas. But I'll try to get them back on later. If you tuned in, thank you very much. This wasn't scheduled. I knew they were going to speak. I didn't know what time. So I'd had to kind of skedaddle to get this up and running. But I'll get them. I don't know if they're speaking in KC tomorrow. I'll find out later from them when they call. They're just trying to regroup. They're just, stomping mad. just because of the journey it took just to get to Chicago, and then they get there and they get screwed over, because they got lied to. Everybody got lied to. And then they got screwed over again. So sometimes you need a little time to digest all that and move forward. Yeah. I was, I don't know if I told y'all, but I was privileged to be on a Zoom yesterday with Dr. Ed Group and David Avocado Wolf. Wow. What a Zoom that was. So very, 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 very impressed with both of those gentlemen. Look forward to doing some things together with Ed in the future. So I think that's it. I'm going to go get to work back on my writ of habeas corpus, knock out this ground one, get it all like I like it. And as I told you before, AI is just a tool. It's not going to do everything for you. And as the more I do it, the more I when you do it one time, you get a good answer. And then as you continue, it keeps whittling it down to, a skeleton of what you really want. But like I said, it's a tool. So I'm just going to utilize it as a tool. But most of it, I'm going to write myself. That's what it's looking like anyway. So I'll be back tonight at 8 Central with a scheduled show. Wesley Keith Mullings. I don't have the thumbnail over here. No, I do not. We're going to be talking about the auto bond in depth. So tune in for that if you're interested in that. You have to have a trust if you're going to do that particular methodology for self-assurance. It's not insurance. It's a bond. You're the adjuster. So it's just like if an analogy, you're the insurance company, okay? And you're the one who writes the checks for the insurance company. And you're also the adjuster who, okay, that's a valid claim. Oh, nope, that's not a valid claim. And authorize how much should be paid out. So you turn your hat around and you write out the check. So that's basically what you're doing, except the check writer is the state where you have the bond. So all you do as the adjuster is authorize the check to be cut for X amount of dollars and pay to the order of whoever made the valid claim. That's the mechanics of how it works. So that'll give you an analogy. You don't have to buy a policy. I don't know. It's a flat fee now to get the bond. So we're going to try to work out some kind of, just like you pay on your insurance, you pay a premium, okay, $100 down, $50 a month, right? For 12 months. So we're going to try to figure something out like that. I don't know if they have that available, but we're going to discuss it and move forward from there. I like a lot of things that I've been seeing and hearing in the last week. I've reached out to some different people. Well, not different. I know who they are. Just exploring where people are in their different journeys. There you go. And I was checking out the bill of exchange process and found that to be very informative. I just attended one class out of, I don't know, I think there were already 14 in the can, something like that. I don't know how many there are. I don't know if there's 14 classes, 15 classes, 16, 20, 30, 90, 100. So I don't know where I am in that hierarchy of classes but it sounded like, enough information to move forward. Everything looked good, sounded good, and I haven't personally seen the proof of success. I got the proof of concept, got that down. There's a lot of knowledge that goes behind that because you have to be able to defend your position when you're doing all that. So you have to be able to come up with, all these various IRS codes, Federal Reserve codes, CFRs, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a learning curve to learn all that applies to what you're trying to do, because a bill of exchange is, a specific animal, a species of security. So it's different from, it's basically a check, but it's different from a check. It's different from a draft. Coupon, remittance, etc. So yeah, I was very, very grateful to be able to be invited to sit in on that. It sounded like something that was effective. Now, does it work 100% of the time? I don't think they've gotten to that level yet, but majority of what they're doing, they're having successes. So with each account that one is attempting to utilize a bill of exchange on, that's all just a different journey. Just because Verizon, I'll just use them as an example, just because you use Verizon and that just, man, just like paying a bill, easy, nothing, no pushback, no rejections, nothing. It's like, oh, that was easy. And then you do the next one and it's a struggle. So everyone's going to be a little bit different. And they have to be different. You can't just follow some, everybody can't do the same thing. It has to be yours, has to be your own. That's why we say that this is your own journey. You have to make everything your own and develop that as your own for your own personal security and sanity. So, all right. Well, I'm going to get to work. I think I bored you guys enough with everything, but I see some really, nice things on the horizon. I see some people doing some good work, steady work. They're not trying to get rich and capitalize on everybody. They like small groups, and I think that's where it's at. If you're trying to, get 10,000 people to follow you, and you're begging for money and all that, yeah. That's why, I run the ad for the books and classes, but I don't push the books and classes. If you want them, come get them. If you don't, that's fine too. Guess what? I'm going to wake up tomorrow and, not even notice, really. So, did I save that? There we go. I've got to go back and edit these. So, again, apologies. It's not my fault. It's not Tanawah or Jessica's fault. You can blame the mayor of the city of Chicago like everybody else is. So if you want to point some fingers at why we are not having a live presentation, there you go. So maybe we'll do something tomorrow live on their next destination. I don't know. We'll find out later this evening. So thank you, everybody, for watching. I appreciate you. And I'll see you tonight at 8 with Wesley Keith Mullings, and we'll talk about the auto bond. And I'll have him on for the next 2 weeks afterwards, talking about each one of the bonds. So y'all have a nice. Thank you for hanging around after the show. I want to present to you Tailor-Made Trust, featuring Ann LaFleur's Trust Series, available at tailormadetrust.com, as well as thefearlessfloydshow.com store. Here are a handful of the available trusts that can be built, custom tailored to your needs and desires. 25 different trusts, plus the DNA Trust Addendum. And as always, Ann LaFleur's classic trusts and ancillary classes, and also Ann's books on trust and specialty trust, which I also co-authored. If you'd like to get a class, a book, or have a trust custom built for you, always available at the fearlessfloydshow.com store. And I'll see you in the next show. Thank you for watching and have an awesome day.